Hey everybody, welcome to the Vomitorium. As always, I am your host, The Metal, and joining me today is my buddy Buck, moderator of the server. How you doing, Buck?
Doing alright. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, Marsupial couldn't make it. He's feeling sick today, so Buck is here, warming the bench. And I don't know, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but I also have to eat while we're talking because food time. Before we came on, we were just catching up between each other about the whole Unity situation. I don't believe we're going to rehash that. Honestly, I think we even wrapped up our conversation a little bit anyway, because we talked about that last time and went over most of the things. I think the only thing that we found out new that you brought up is that some of the people who are on the board as well were sketchy to begin with, and we probably should have saw this stuff coming.
Yeah, quick recap on that point for anybody who isn't in the Discord and was interested. So it turns out that 3 of the big people on the board, and one of which is very likely going to be the new CEO, were originally not just the founder of wait, forgot what it was called for a second.
Well,
Iron
you
Source.
left a screenshot. Yeah, Iron Source.
Yep, one of them is the founder of Iron Source. He is also the one who is more likely to be chosen as the new CEO to replace the guy who left. And the other 2 are basically the director and founder of the 2 companies that convinced Unity to buy them out in the first place.
Yeah. It's really fucked up. It sucks when a company has a good thing going, and they clearly don't understand their entire, like, user base. And they're just like, hey, let's make more money. It's like, yes, I think companies need more money. That's not the way to do it. But it's just not the way to do it at all. But when you have, like, Iron Source and a couple of the other places were already shifty prior to their involvement with Unity, you expect, like, that stuff to come through eventually.
Yeah, especially since very obvious when it comes from the Iron Source thing was just finalized and purchased last year.
Yeah. Let's take a moment to say hello to the people in chat. We've got Horny Gaming. We've got Fizz Chozo and Luftwaffe Pilot. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. But yeah, that's Unity's dead. I think they've already seen a massive drop in their stock. I don't know if you've saw that.
Oh yeah, I've been seeing that. Just like a diagonal line. Very few like breaks in how far it's going down because like yeah, when your whole thing is that you have the most money coming in from medium level companies because of how many like discounts you're giving, then those people who aren't making enough money to deal with you essentially trying to rip them off are just going to go somewhere else. And guess what? The big companies sure as hell aren't willing to pay you more. And if you try to do something to make them pay more, they'll just start their own fucking things.
Yeah. I think it is more about that growth problem, right? Because I don't think the big companies really care. Especially if you looked at the price chart. It's not really going to affect the highest end people, right? It's going to be a minuscule charge at most, but most of them also use all of those other services to where they're going to be discounted to nothing. Like literally, it won't affect them. It won't affect the lowest end people because they're just not in the bracket to be charged. It's all the middle people. But like I said before we started, if you were a small person that thought, hey, maybe my game will blow up, why would you even start on Unity if you know you're just going to end up in that middle group that gets fucked over?
Yeah, it's just like, hey, we're finally big enough to make money. It's like, no, you're finally big enough to give us your money.
Mm-hmm. So, I actually had something pulled up on that. If I can find it. Yeah, we did have two things about that. One, Unity shut down their offices following death threats. Now, I don't like what they did. Most people don't. You're not solving the problem by giving death threats. The internet is stupid. Like, really, really stupid. Especially because most of the employees at Unity have no decision over what's going on with this at all. They just work for the company doing their thing. And they had to shut down the entire office because... what kind of... I don't think it even says what type of death threat. Whether it was like a bomb threat or something. Just that there was a very credible death threat that shut down the entire office. Which is retarded. Absolutely. Don't do that. Listen out there, people. If there's a company that does something you don't like, don't give them death threats. One, I mean, that's not even effective. And I'm going to tell you not to do this anyway, but if you were going to do something, just go ahead and do it. A threat doesn't solve anything. But also, doing it won't solve anything. Because if anything, if you give people death threats, one, you're violating the law. It's very illegal, and you probably shouldn't be doing that. But two, you're just justifying whatever decision they made in their own heads. Like, you're just going to push them harder. Don't you understand that spite is the biggest driving factor for, like, anything? The other thing. There is a Humble Bundle right now that you can get. What's the price for it? $20. You spend $20 on this Humble Bundle, and I believe it comes with everything you need to learn how to use the Godot engine. Alright, it's the perfect time to drop Unity, hop onto an engine that I believe they even said they're never going public. But an engine made by people who don't hate you, that actually want to see you make good games, and they just want a reasonable amount of money for anything that you do. And you could just spend $20 getting every single resource you need to be able to get started making 2D and 3D games in Godot. Let's all just say fuck Unity and move on to something better. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, sounds pretty good. Plus, Godot also has yearly game jams, so that's interesting in a way to get your name out there.
There's only one problem with Godot right now, and I believe they're trying to fix it. I have a lot of friends who make games on Newgrounds, specifically, right? Everybody knows Newgrounds is known for being able to play web games. Currently, you have to use an older version. You have to use Godot 3 if you want to be able to make games for the web, because Godot 4 does not have the ability to export to HTML, right? That's fine. This bundle actually gives you intro courses and everything you need for Godot 3 as well, if you want to go backwards. But you just won't be using the most modern version if you're trying to make web games. I think they'll probably solve it soon. They keep talking about how they're going to update 4 to be able to export to HTML. Exporting to HTML is a lot more complicated than people think.
I mean, to be fair, making games, period, is a lot more complicated than people think.
It is. It's more accessible now for people to get into it than it ever has been before. But everybody hops in like, yeah, I'm going to make a game. It's like, okay. Do you know what you need to do to make a game, though? I'm not even talking about, like, what individual things you need to learn, but do you know, like, everything that goes into it? Because there's a lot that goes into making a game.
People are even booting up RPG Maker, and then it's just, which is, like, super simplified, and it's like, wait, what the fuck am I doing? Wait, what the hell?
Yeah, it's very plug and play. RPG Maker was advertising their program. I think they were even doing a sale on Unity. The best thing to come out of this is everybody's doing sales. Like, hey, hop into our engine. We're better because we're not going to fuck you over.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like everybody else is like seeing fire and brimstone. These guys are just hearing the heavenly chorus of just, hey, new users.
Yeah. So here's everything that's in the Godot software bundle over at Humble Bundle. And the cool thing about Humble Bundle too is not only are you paying for the software, you also get to choose from a choice of like 3 charities that some of your money goes to. So, you know, whether you are actually donating to a good cause or not, because who knows about most charities, you can at least feel like you're making a difference in the world. If you donate $1, you get the intro to Godot 4 game development thing. A lesson. I don't know what this is. It's just that's what it's marketed. Could be a PDF, could be a video series. I don't know. If you pay $25, you get Godot 3 game development for beginners, Godot 4 mini projects, which is a Humble Bundle exclusive, and Intro to Godot 4 game development, which you would get in the $1. I believe everything, starts to repeat as you get higher. And then if you pay at least the average donation, which is a fluctuating price, but clearly it's higher than $25 to get more than this, right? You get create a 2D platformer in Godot 4, develop a 3D platformer in Godot 4. Most of these are Humble Bundle exclusives too, so you'll only get it from here. Build a micro turn-based RPG with Godot 4. Real-time strategy game with Godot 4. Explore micro survival games with Godot 4. First-person shooter with Godot 3. Strategy games with Godot 3. 2D RPG with Godot 3. 3D action RPG with Godot 3. How to create AI NPCs with Godot 4 and ChatGPT if you want to integrate something where it actually learns as it's going on language-wise and you can hold conversations with the NPCs. That's a pretty interesting new feature to add in. UI and UX for game development. Intro to the game development industry, which is a Humble Bundle exclusive and probably the most important one. As we were just talking about, most people don't even know what the hell goes into game development, right? Intro to game design, level design for beginners, intro to 3D modeling with Blender, intro to rigging models in Blender, and intro to pixel art with Photoshop. And those are all the ones that are unique to that bundle. So it's actually quite a good bundle, and if most of the time pay the average donation, it's not that much more than the last tier because people end up working it out. If the last tier is 25, the average donation is probably going to end up being 30. For probably $30, you could pick up whatever that bundle is. Hell, that'll probably take you months to go through all of that. You're basically going to get a mini gaming education from reading all of that material.
Meanwhile, now I'm gonna have to double check all the games I've been looking at the releases for to see if they were gonna be built with Unreal and or
Unity.
If they were gonna be using Unity or not, because there was one I was looking at called Billy Bust Up, which is like a musical platform, but it's like, oh nope, that's Unreal. Okay, that's still gonna be going the same route.
Yeah, well that's the thing, right? If it's Unity, if it's from a bigger studio, even something that's not like AAA, but like a single
bigger studio, it's probably going to go through unscathed. If it's a smaller studio and it says Unity, it's like, shit, that might be getting scrapped and redone soon.
Either scrapped, or there might be anywhere between a 1 to 2 year delay before it comes out. Who knows? Also, how do you like my,
I think they
choice and drink for the evening?
Oh shit, that reminds me, I need a drink. Be right back.
Okay. See, Fischoso says ChatGPT is going to revolutionize gaming. Maybe. I think chat, like deep learning AI interface is going to, in general, I don't know if it'll be just ChatGPT. I'm sure it will be used a lot. There's going to be a lot of competitors. Square has one. They actually already made a game with their own in-house deep learning software where they basically remastered one of their older detective visual novel games, but they included a chatbot to actually make the game interactive, and you could repeat it and get different responses every single time you play the game. So definitely chatbots in general and these like machine learning things we call AI will revolutionize gaming to some degree. It's another tool that we can use to make things different than they were before. And in gaming, novelty goes a long way because people are looking for things they've never seen before quite a lot of the time. Though sometimes people are also just looking for something they're familiar with. Like, if you're playing a PvP first-person shooter, what's a chatbot going to do for you, right?
Not a damn thing.
So, let's get into the other stuff. There was a Nintendo Direct that happened, which we will definitely talk about that. Oh, it says,
I heard this one was very Mario-centric.
It was, and we will get to that. He said, Fizz also says, although chatbots might spawn evil AI off of people's computers, I'm skeptical of that, especially knowing how these systems work. I'm very skeptical of that. I think that's an irrational fear. But yes, it was very Mario-centric. But right before that, there is a little bit of news concerning Final Fantasy that I want to cover because it made me groan. Right? And it'll probably make you groan too. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is the sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake, even though there was a mini story that happened in between, which was Intergrade, that is kind of DLC to the first part. But Rebirth is supposed to be part 2 of what was originally going to be a 3-part remake that then was said to be a 2-part remake that went back to being a 3-part remake, and now, as far as we know, from what we've been told, it's a 4-part remake, which is already sounding way too fucking long to me. But don't worry, they're about to make it sound even fucking longer. So, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will have nearly 100 hours worth of content. Who asked for it? Honestly.
What the hell?
You know what I thought?
So what are they trying to say this is like part 2 but with new content added in?
Or stretching it out or whatever. Yeah. Well, because they added new content to part 1, right? There was like that whole part with Jesse's house and stuff that was never in the original. They added a lot. There's also a lot of like side quests and things. And it's like the amount of side content will nearly double that of the game's main quest, according to the director Naoki Hamaguchi. And it's just like, I thought the original Final Fantasy VII for an RPG, if you wanted something that was long, was the perfect length for a game. There are some side quests. There is some mini games I wish you didn't have to do. If they were all optional, it'd be fine, but I shouldn't have to snowboard down to the Northern Cave, right? I didn't pay for a mini game. I paid for a turn-based RPG. But still, the story was long enough. On average, somebody's first playthrough will probably take them, I don't know, somewhere between 40 to 50 hours to play that game. That's a long game, right? I think your average playthrough is actually closer to like 35 hours. But that's still a really long game. And for a long time, people were asking for more from a game. And I'm like, no, that's perfect. I don't want to have to spend more than 35 hours playing a game unless it's all optional shit for me to do. And this does sound like it's mostly optional shit, right? More than double, so... or nearly double. So we could guess that maybe 25 hours of this game is the main gameplay, and the other 75 hours, or the other, no, that wouldn't be work. The first 33 hours is main gameplay. The other 66 hours, right, is the side quests. I had to do some basic math in my head real quick. All right, double 1/3 is 2/3. So I don't want that. Especially considering how long the first one is. So these aren't separate games, really, right? You have to play from one to the next to understand it. It's not like when I soaked 70 hours into Final Fantasy 12. But that was all of 12 at the time, right? They eventually made a sequel. Luckily, the sequel was only like an additional 20 hours of gameplay. But that was all of Final Fantasy 12, was that 70 hours. I didn't have to do any more than that. I even think... most people's average playtime, because we did more than the average, is 60. That's fine, right? For a single game where the whole story is in that game. This is an
I mean,
old game.
nowadays they're trying to say a game can be less than 10 hours and still be a massive game, so...
And it can, actually, right? Like, it depends on what the replayability of the game is. If your game is nearly 100 hours, that's not very replayable. Especially if I have to go back, like, to fully enjoy it. Maybe the middle part is just your favorite part. I don't know. But to fully enjoy it, I have to go back to the first one and play through all of that again, right? So how many hours is that going to be total?
I'm just hoping there's some kind of save carryover, because otherwise I can't wait to see how many people
I'm going to quell your hopes right now. Literally right now. That was the other part of it. Headline: Final Fantasy VII Rebirth won't let you import your OP remake characters.
So in other words, if you grinded like crazy in the first part, you're essentially starting the second part with less levels.
You're starting from where Cloud is supposed to start in that part of the game. Yes, that's how it is. The only thing you'll get is if you have a save file, if it reads on the system, you'll score some free materia at the start of the game that will make you a little stronger than you would have been otherwise.
So in other words, no matter what you did in the first part, they're just gonna fuck over your equipment and levels to just where they think the baseline should be.
Let's see. Fizz also has a question. I'll talk more about that in a second. I just want to address this. What could ChatGPT do for action RPGs? The same thing it would do for like any RPG, because to really be an action RPG means there has to be some role-playing elements to it, right? Which means there'll be NPCs to talk to, quests and things like that. It'd be AI. That's all ChatGPT would do for it. Right, the people you talk to in town, maybe they'll be preloaded with certain scripts. If you want to know how characters like that would work, you can actually go to character.ai, where you can go in and you can give those characters like pre-made conversations where they end up responding to other people based on those pre-made conversations. So like, you could do that in an RPG, no problem. You just basically make character AIs. The dancer in the town in the original Final Fantasy, that all she says is, I'm a dancer, would suddenly have endless voice lines around the fact that she's a dancer. The problem is there would also have to be some type of mitigation in there so that you can also make sure they don't go out of bounds. There'd have to be boundary limits on the character. Because you don't want that dancer to start talking about, I don't know, stripping to little kids or anything like that, right? Because the chat might just immediately go that way. You'd have to set boundaries, which I don't think is a problem for Square. You wouldn't need GPT. Their chatbot they used for that game, which, here, let me open up Steam real quick to find the name of it, because I have it. The name of the game is... Portopia. That was it. The Portopia serial murder case. There's already boundaries, so the characters always act like the characters. You don't have to worry about that. Right. But yeah, what you were saying with the save files and let's work backwards. I got into a tangent that I felt like I had to get into. Trying to remember what you were just saying. Do you remember what you just said? Okay, I guess I'll have to figure it out. Unless you're trying to talk and I can't hear you. Wait, there you go.
Sorry.
Do you remember what you were talking about just before I did that tangent? When it came to the save files and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I was just I was just going along with it and wondering if
Yeah.
there was going to be carryover because
No, there's not. None at all.
because even like I was thinking they weren't going to and was expecting to see the complaints coming in from it because yeah, it's like, okay, you did all this extra work for the first one to prepare for the next one. Fuck you.
Yeah. So I think if you're going to do that, I think that's the problem. It shouldn't have been a game where you can grind in the first place, right? Which a lot of people would complain because that's just what they're used to. But I think if you're going to lean to that, you should really just do the classic D&D method, right? Where you throw XP to the wind. It could still be an RPG. You could still interact with people. You could do your side quests and all that. But you just make it to where characters get stronger at milestones, right? Like, you got past this part of the story. You got this boon, right? Like, your HP goes up. Like, the story gives you your levels. And if you have trouble completing a side quest, then you should just have to do more of the story. Or if it's a side quest that is locked to a certain part of the story and you can't do it again, well, then the developer should balance it to where you can do it at that part of the story, right? Because if you're going to do like this multiple games where you're actually following a story very closely, you shouldn't punish people, right? And I can understand their problem as a developer. You don't want somebody coming into a game where you're supposed to start at like level 35 and they're already like level 50, right? Then you just don't give them levels. Just give them power-ups at different times. Boons, you know?
On top of that, if you're also if you're gonna do that, at the very least, set the level cap to
whatever the game's
what
going to
you're
be.
gonna start the next one at.
Yeah.
Like, don't have the previous game have a level cap that is higher than your default starting point in the next one.
Well, I've considered that too, right? Because I eventually would like to make an RPG based off of my story, Chronicling of a Planet Called Mira. But it's such a story-based game that jumps between different people's perspectives that I think to myself, I don't know if I could let you level, right? Or if I did, every section would have to have level caps. You know? And
The only thing I can think of for that is how Dragon Ball Kakarot did it, where
Yeah.
if a character is supposed to be at least a minimum level, that they just give the experience that a character at the minimum would need to reach that level the second you get control of them again. So at that point, if you were at what they considered the minimum level, you immediately jump up to the level that they should have been at that point. But if you are higher than that, you could potentially be 1 or 2 levels over already.
Yeah. And I've considered something like that. Though I think one of the cool things about an RPG, and you should balance it this way, is that there shouldn't be a minimum level, right? You say there should be minimum stats, but sometimes you would be like, I can make up for that by buying equipment, right? Like I could just make myself stronger by adding this like 50 damage to whatever my character is, right? But I think the minimum level should be whatever you are comfortable doing. So I wouldn't want to punish somebody who's trying to do a challenge run, so they're like intentionally not grinding, right? And I feel like that XP boost, if it came in an option, right? Like for easy mode of the game, you ask for easy mode or something, and it's like if you're playing on easy mode, when you go to the next one, it'll give you all of that minimum experience. I'd be fine with that, right? We could give different modes for different difficulty and give people the options that they want. I just wouldn't want to make it mandatory, right?
I mean, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Joshua Hughes, hey Joshua, is here. We also have Yuki Core showed up in chat too. And Joshua says, I played all the side missions in Final Fantasy VII Remake and got different weapons and stuff, but by the time I got some of the upgrades, the game was almost over and I couldn't really try them all out, which is a problem if you can't carry things over, and because they're optional, who knows what equipment Cloud is going to start this game with. If you're going to do that, you might as well just give him all of the optional equipment at the beginning, which they're not going to.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they just like had Cloud's like basic starting equipment just leveled up to be like the equivalent of what a piece of equipment should be at that point.
What I think they would do, which again, they'd probably actually just do what you did. But what I think they should do, if they were going that route, is they should go back to the original game and look at, okay, what level is Cloud? And where is he, right? Because we're leaving Midgard now. I say we, I'm not playing this fucking game. But they're leaving Midgard now. They should look like, what equipment in the shop could Cloud have had at that time in the original game? And then just start him with that, right? They probably won't, though. Because they have no idea what the fuck they're doing with this game. Did we mention that Zack's not dead? And they've already showed off a part where Cloud and Sephiroth are going to be fighting side by side with each other, so you actually get to play Sephiroth, technically, quote unquote.
I mean, oh god. So, let's see. The Sephiroth thing doesn't bother me as much because, you know, if they go certain ways into the backstory, that's supposed to be a thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that Zack isn't dead, it's like, I'm sorry, then what the fuck is the motivation for this again?
Oh, no, he thought Zack was dead. See, I don't know if you've been following this, but there's a time travel involved with the live stream. That's this whole thing. It's not actually a remake of the story. It's a redo. It's technically a sequel to the original story.
Could we go maybe a couple of years without having a game that story hinges around time travel bullshit?
Can we go a couple years without Square making a Final Fantasy VII game?
I'm not sure which one's more difficult to ask for at this point.
Because, I mean, we'll go years without having one for sale, but they're always making one. My buddy Stan went on a rant quite a while back. You can find it. It's Stan Pie's Soapbox. And he made a rant about Final Fantasy VII, and you always want to know, why was Final Fantasy VII that special so many years later, right? And it's like, it makes sense at the time, because especially in Europe, for a lot of people, it was their first Final Fantasy. It was the first one Europeans ever got, I think, other than Mystic Quest, which doesn't even really count. And also, it was the first one on the PlayStation. It was the first one with 3D models. Like, there's a lot of special things about 7, and the story's not bad. I don't think it's the best one in the series by far. I would probably put it right around in the middle, but it's not bad. It's a good game. I like 7. But why is it as popular as it is? Especially when, like, a lot of the people who love 7 now have never even played 7, right? They didn't even come in until Final Fantasy X was a game, right? And part of it might be because of Kingdom Hearts, right? Because Cloud's in there, and a bunch of the 7 people are too, and Advent Children was made, and all the side media. And then when you start thinking about it, it's because they never stopped making Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII is just like its own franchise of thing, almost disconnected from the rest of Final Fantasy.
Pretty much, though I will say I still find it pretty funny that, oh, you like Final Fantasy, name 10 characters, Sid.
Yeah,
and be entirely true.
There's a couple other things that you could pull with that too, right? Like you could, I don't know if they've had 10 yet, but you could be like Biggs and Wedge. There's quite a few of those as well, ever since Final Fantasy VI was the first time they were introduced. There's a few recurring names that you could just name, and you'd be fine. Bahamut, you could just say Bahamut, who wasn't even, when he originally was just a dragon that could talk, right, like in the first game. And there's plenty of them that can. Bahamut's a character himself. If you say that, you're accurate.
Yeah, that's true.
In fact, actually, Bahamut predates Sid, because I believe in the remakes, they do name Sid in the past, but there was never a Sid that showed up in the game. Like, he existed when the Ancients did, right? But there was a Bahamut that you meet in the first game, so there's technically more Bahamuts than Sids. So, yeah. take that, people out there who think they know more about Final Fantasy than me. I don't know how many there are. There probably are people who do. And there are probably people who do know more than me, but I don't think there's that many out there who think they know more than me. I don't talk to the ones who know more than me. I like to feel smart. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Like, I think, I think 7 Rebirth and all that stuff is just in a whack place. And I didn't even like the remake. It's fine for people who did. I didn't. I'd rather just go back and play the original Final Fantasy VII. But I think everything they're doing with it is whack. And I know you were a little excited because it's a little bit more action-y based, and you're not really a fan of turn-based combat. But I don't know, you don't even have any excitement for the remakes anymore, do you?
I mean, not long into actually seeing stuff about the original remake, I lost any excitement for it. And it's like, gameplay-wise, it's a game I could play. Everything else I've heard about is just like, no thanks, I'll pass.
Yeah. You just, you'll wait for them to make another season pass of Stranger in Paradise.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. I actually enjoyed that game.
Yeah. It was a much better. It was a much better Devil May Cry game than Final Fantasy 16. So we do have before we get into the Nintendo stuff, because there are plenty of Nintendo stuff to talk about. Another quick aside: John Carpenter has a new horror show coming out that is about the scariest place you could possibly imagine, the suburbs. And it's called John Carpenter's Suburban Screams. I like Carpenter. I think he's a very good director, especially his horror stuff. He does have one series that I don't really care about, but I really liked his Apocalypse trilogy, which includes like The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and In the Mouth of Madness. I think those are really good. I love when Carpenter makes stuff. So I will probably give this a 6-part, apparently currently unscripted series that is going to Peacock a try. I'm not paying for Peacock, though. I'm going to have to, sail the high seas to find it. But it's going to be an anthology show, which I think is what Carpenter does best, is when he just wants to tell short, limited stories, right? I think when you try to get him into doing stuff with a recurring character, he also starts to lose interest, and things just end up kind of whack with him. But when he gets to try to do different things every single time, he has fun. So I will be pretty... Let's see. Wait, Fischio says you have to pay for Peacock? I thought it was ad-based. I don't know if it is or not, but I'm also not watching their ads. I know you kind of get it if you have cable, but I'm also not paying for cable, so I'm going to get that shit out of here. But I don't know if you can view this with ads. I'm just going to sail the high seas anyway. I feel more comfortable doing that. But it's going to be all various things from like maniac serial killers to haunted houses. There's an official trailer. I'm not going to play it on screen, but it looks really fun. And it's going to be here just in time, October 13th, for us to enjoy it for the holiday season. And it's probably all we're going to talk about, because you don't even give a shit about horror movies yourself.
Not really, no.
It's something that I'm probably going to sit down in the other room. We'll turn the lights off, and I'll watch it with, like, my brother or something, because we're both into, like, horror stuff. But let's get into Nintendo. So there was a lot of shit. That was announced during the Nintendo Direct. Some of it new, some of it old, made new again, some of it crazy. I think the thing we clearly have to start with, the craziest thing that was announced out of nowhere, we had no idea Nintendo even cared about this franchise anymore. But they decided that they were going to resurrect F-Zero as like one of these like Mario 35, Tetris 99, Pac-Man 99 type games with F-Zero 99, which on the day it was announced, you could actually download it and start playing it if you have the Nintendo Online, the basic package too. You don't need the extension, and it lets you race up against 98 other people on the classic SNES tracks. I think that's really exciting. I think if enough people, I think this is what they call like a end test, right? Like they're trying to gauge interest. So if enough people download this and play this, maybe we'll actually get another F-Zero game for once in like what, 2 decades? I think GameCube was the last time we had an F-Zero game.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Does it make you feel old knowing that that's about 20 years ago?
Oh, trust me, I feel old on a daily basis now because I keep on running into people and I say like the basest shit and it's like, wait, what's that? When did that come out?
Yeah, it's like that that meme that I always see. They do it for different games. I see them for Mario and Final Fantasy as well most of the time. But it'll be like what you think this series was 20 years ago, and it shows something that was back on like the SNES, what this series actually was 20 years ago, and it shows something that was on the GameCube, and like, yeah, no, that's right. There's not too much to talk about F-Zero 99 other than like it is just the classic F-Zero. That's all it is, but you're racing against 98 other people. There is a power meter that will decrease when you take damage. And when utilizing a speed boost, if the gauge is empty, it's game over. So you are actively encouraged to try to take out other cars and to like mitigate your own fuel. There is a new meter though, for collecting super sparks on the courses. If you gain enough, these yellow balls will lead to driving on a special skyway, which means speeding above the competitors and gaining an advantage. So obviously they had to add like a bunch of these versus options like you do in Tetris 99 or anything else, because really what would be the point if you were just playing F-Zero with other people, right? Then it's just like speedrunners automatically win.
Yeah, that is true.
I think it's cool. I might play it later. I don't know. I haven't downloaded. I haven't tried playing it yet. I don't expect to win. F-Zero is not a game I'm good at. I enjoy playing it. I've played a little bit of it, but to be good at any game, you have to invest time, and I've just never, ever bothered to invest time in F-Zero games. Nor do I think I ever want to get better at F-Zero games. I think I enjoy the level of competency I have in it for like the brief stints that I play those games. I only ever want to be good enough to play through the story that was added in later versions.
I think the only time I ever played F-Zero was back when they had those demo things in McDonald's.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Don't you miss having like 64s and GameCubes in McDonald's?
I do, honestly, yeah.
Too
Gave me
bad.
something to do while I waited for my order.
Too bad they were almost never usable because most kids can't take care of the controllers. Like, of course they're going to get broken. You expect that, but God. Parents just aren't doing their jobs. They can't teach their kids to take care of shit, especially shit that's not theirs.
Yeah.
Let's move over to something that actually might excite you. We've got Mario vs. Donkey Kong is coming back, which is pretty cool. And it's not a minis, which is the only thing that we've seen from Mario vs. Donkey Kong for a long time was like March of the Minis and Minis March Again, which is Mario versus Donkey Kong, but it's kind of like a Lemmings game, right?
Yeah.
This is classic Mario versus Donkey Kong, where they're back in the warehouse, and the toys are back, but the toys are back because they're things that, like, Donkey Kong is using when you're playing on his side to try to make sure Mario can't get to him, or Mario's using to try to get to Donkey Kong, and it's just going to be that classic rivalry. I think it's going to be fun. Did they give a name to this? I'm trying to see if this one actually has a name. I think it's literally just called Mario versus Donkey Kong, from what I can tell. But it is fully 3D. And it is the first game that we see for Mario vs. Donkey Kong since the Amiibo challenge, where you could scan Amiibos and do like the minis with like different characters on both like the Wii U and 3DS. So it's been quite a while since we've even seen this franchise. And it's always good to see Donkey Kong get a spotlight, even if he is primarily the villain.
Yeah, definitely. It is nice to, like, I heard that there was a new Mario versus Donkey Kong, but I immediately figured it was another minis thing.
Same, like my mind immediately goes there. But this seems to be almost like a soft reboot, I think, where obviously all the previous stuff happened, but canon's not a really big deal in the Mario universe, right? And it's kind of like a reimagining of the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong, but with a lot more shit. So that's cool.
Yeah, that is definitely good.
We also got, where is it? A really, really cool trailer for a game that I'm excited for. You won't be because it's turn-based, but it was one of my favorite RPGs I've ever played back on the GameCube. And people were kept seeing leaks about this game coming, thinking like, oh, are they going to add like a GameCube to the Switch Online? And like, I don't know about that because GameCube games are pretty big by comparison. Like when we go from 64 to GameCube, the file size jumps up a lot, right? And GameCube, you can emulate a lot of GameCube games, but even then they get even harder to emulate the further you go on. But no. Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door is getting a full HD remaster, where like if you look closely at the characters too, you can see that the new, they're supposed to be paper. They look more cardboard now, right? But they've got all of this texture on them, these nice reflections. The environments look wonderful. You could tell it's not a port, right? In fact, it looks like they did even more to this than they did on like the Wind Waker or Skyward Sword ports. Or HD remasters, as they call them. This is a full-scale HD remaster of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Probably one of the best RPGs Nintendo has ever made, just in general. But I don't know. It's tough between this and the original Paper Mario, which one is better. But I could probably say, while I like the original more, this is the best Paper Mario game. And it might even be the best of the Mario RPGs. Which is, I don't know. Mario & Luigi Partner in Time is a pretty good game too. And then there's the original Super Mario RPG. All three of them are pretty close to each other. But this is a great game that, at this point, I don't even think it's just to make the game look better. It's an accessibility thing, right? How many people can play Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door on the GameCube? Like, how many people can get a copy?
Yeah, that is very true. Because even if you still have a working GameCube, the odds of getting a new copy if you didn't already have it is pretty slim at this point.
Well, and also think about how many GameCubes are actually out there, right? You might be able to find some unopened ones in a warehouse somewhere. But most GameCubes that you see are old GameCubes, right? That have been, like, refurbished. So they're only what got sold for the most part. And if we look at the numbers, the GameCube's numbers are not much different than the PlayStation 5's. Right? It's like, we like the GameCube. It wasn't a very successful system. So, yeah, it's an accessibility thing. And I'm glad, because you could play the original Paper Mario in basically the original format. There's no upscaling or anything. I guess technically upscaling, everything's upscaled on the Switch emulator. But there's no, like, they didn't go in and change anything to the code. But you can play the original Paper Mario on the Switch Online if you have the expansion that gives you the N64. And now you'll be able to play the Thousand Year Door. The real question is, how far are they going to take this? Are they going to bring in Super Paper Mario eventually? Because I enjoyed that game. But the first two Paper Mario games are the only games that I think are actually Paper Mario. I wish Super Paper Mario wasn't Super Paper Mario. I wish the game existed. I do like the RPG-ness of it. I wish they just called it something else and he wasn't paper and it had nothing to do with... You're talking about canon not mattering in Mario. It used to matter in Paper Mario, story-wise. And Super Paper Mario is when it starts to not matter, and then it just doesn't at all after that point. But Thousand Year Door takes place shortly after the first one, and it even references the events and stuff from the first one. You even run into some of your old partners at certain points, like because they're on vacation or whatever. And it's I think it should have just stopped there, and Super Paper Mario should have been its own thing. And if it was, we probably wouldn't have gotten all these other crappy Paper Mario games. But I'm excited for that. I'm definitely going to buy it. Play through Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door for counting the 7th time. That'll be fun. We got more news about the Super Mario RPG remake. And this remake is actually making me think, making me ask, Nintendo, put the original version of the Super Nintendo category, the emulator on the Switch Online, so people can experience the original version. You're clearly working with Square to get this remake. I don't think licensing should be a problem at this point for getting it onto the Super Nintendo platform, because they're adding new battle mechanics to the Super Mario RPG remake. And it was already bad enough for specifically 2 characters. I think the rest of the world looks beautiful. I love the way that the bosses were remade. I even think the partners look fine, because they're literally the only game most of the partners have ever been in, right? But Mario and Peach look really squished. I don't like the way they look, because they were just trying to make them look like the sprites. And as these sprites that are trying to look like 3D models, they were fine. These 3D models, they don't look like big Mario and Peach. They don't look like small Mario and Peach. They look like this weird squished in-between thing. And I wish they kind of just took the small Mario and Peach from the other games and just scaled it up to the cube size, which they clearly didn't do. I don't like the way they look. That was already kind of putting me off of the game a little bit. But I don't like that this is the only version of the game most people will ever play, and they're adding in more mechanics. I like new mechanics sometimes, but if you're going to do that, please put the original experience on the emulator so that people can have both experiences. I don't like the idea of taking that experience away from people. But the new thing is, one of the new things is going to be a gauge, is what they said. Where I just had it, the action gauge, right? And once it hits 100%, a triple move can be unleashed that switches up depending on the combo of characters used. So it's like a tri-attack with all 3 characters, almost like Chrono Trigger style, right? Or you played Pokemon X and Y, right? Where they have the triple battles in there, right? It'll be like a tri-attack in that way. And it's cool, but it's just like a new thing that's being added to the game, probably to make the fights easier for people, right? Like you get to do the super if you fill up your gauge.
Yeah, that sounds about normal for how things are being done now.
Yeah, so it'd also be cool. I guess maybe you could choose not to do it. Hopefully, it just doesn't. The way they're describing, because I didn't watch the trailer. I only caught a few of the stuff. I didn't get to watch the whole direct. I've been busy last few days. But it says can be unleashed. So if it also means, hey, this is like a limit break gauge, you don't have to do it. That's also fine if people want to manually be like, I want the original challenge of the game. Then they can choose not to do that. Put a self-restriction. But it's like, when I want an HD remake, I literally just want an HD upscale in some way, better models or whatever, of the game I played. I don't want anything else changed about it. Unless, maybe if there was like a bug or something, you could choose to fix that too. I'm not going to complain about you bug fixing your game. But, why are you doing it? I want to say it's probably not just Nintendo. Because Square, you know, it's a Square game, and it's like one of their subsidiaries or something is working on it with them. But nobody can just make a game without, like, remake a game, HD, higher fidelity, without adding something to it. And if you're gonna add something to it, instead of like fucking with the battle system, why not just like add more side levels?
I think the only exception that I've made for like changing mechanics in a game that I was okay with was the Spyro Reignited trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Because since his stupid little flutter thing that didn't even work that well in the first game wasn't in the second or third, they just removed it entirely and slightly changed how high certain jumps were so that you wouldn't need to rely on that mechanic that is no longer there.
Yeah. So at least apparently the there will be a way to mitigate this in one way, right? Nintendo mentioned that the game will feature post-game rematches of the bosses, right? So even if this technique makes the original boss fight easier, there'll be a more difficult version at higher level of that boss that you can fight, and maybe you'll actually need to time using your technique at proper time things, or the combination of characters you use against that boss fight for those rematches. That's kind of cool. But that's what I was like, if you want to change your game, add more side content. I like post-game boss matches. I think that's a fine thing to add to your game. Did you know the original Super Mario RPG, and I hope it stays in here, there is a bonus boss whose name is escaping me right now, that is basically just it's not the full form Zeromus, but it's basically Zermus from Final Fantasy IV, because the games were being made around the same time. And you have to go out of your way to get there. He's like in a crack in the wall that leads you to like these back rooms. And when you fight him, it actually plays in the sound font for Super Mario RPG, the Final Fantasy IV battle, like boss battle theme, Battle 2. And when you beat him, it actually, instead of the Super Mario RPG victory music, it plays the Final Fantasy IV version of the victory music.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. Let's see if I can find that guy's name. FF4 boss in Mario RPG. Kulex. Yeah, his name is Kulex. And he's considered the hardest enemy in the entire game. He's a secret boss. I'll probably still play the game, though. Like I said, aside from the fact that Mario and Peach just look very off-model because they were trying to match the sprites, and normally I want you to try to do that, right? Like I said, I liked the way the Shining Diamond and Brilliant Pearl look, and everyone else in the game looks fine. Even Bowser looks fine trying to fit in there, and it's probably also because his sprite and model were bigger. Instead of a like a single square, he was like a 2x2, right? But Mario and Peach, they look squish. They look like some other toy company tried to make Mario and Peach, not like it was made on model by Nintendo. That's like my only visual complaint. Aside from that, the game looks great. I'm probably going to enjoy it, even if I'm complaining about them adding an extra mechanic to it. Hell, depending on when I get it, I might even just stream it. But, yeah. The other thing... Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Final DLC characters and courses were revealed. Did you see that?
I heard that Funky Kong was one of the final characters, so I was like, yes.
Funky is. Another one that you'll probably like was in there too. Diddy Kong is added with Funky, so they're both going to be there. I know Funky's more important, but more Kongs the merrier, right?
Yeah, I mean, having Diddy Kong in is awesome. Because,
having Diddy Kong is technically more important than Funky, but for you, Funky's more important.
Yeah, for me personally, because Funky was one of my most used characters in, which one was the one that was on the Wii?
On the Wii, that was... I think it was actually just called Mario Kart Wii.
Probably, yeah.
It was the one before 7, right?
Yeah, because I don't think they actually called it Mario Kart 6. They just skipped to 7 because that one was just Mario Kart Wii.
Yeah. It was the first one was Super Mario Kart. Then there was Mario Kart 64, Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario Kart Wii. I might be missing another one in there somewhere. But then you have Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart 8. I guess they're just... We don't need fancy names anymore. We're just gonna... Numbers. Numbers are fine.
Yeah, because on that one, Funky Kong was like my most used character. So the fact that he's coming back is awesome.
Yeah, we also have a highly requested one for me, because you know how much I like my tall brunettes. Pauline is being added in, with looking like her model from Odyssey. So that's really cool.
Nice.
And we're also getting... Oh, you know what? The name for Mario Kart Wii was right in front of my face, too. It's in this article. But we're also getting Peachette. That's going to be the last characters. The last 4 characters are Funky Kong, Diddy Kong, Pauline, and Peachette, which is when Toadette gets the mushroom crown, royal shroom or whatever, and becomes Peach for the new Super Mario Brothers stuff.
I forgot, was Diddy in Double Dash?
I don't remember. I think so, because Donkey Kong had a partner, and I think Diddy was probably his partner. The whole thing about Double Dash is every single character, even the older ones, were in sets, right? So, like, there was Mario and Luigi, right? And you had, like, Peach and Daisy. Was. Yeah, and I think he was Donkey Kong's partner.
Yep.
Yeah. It's also the reason why Waluigi was let in there in the first place is because Waluigi was let into the games back in tennis because Wario needed a doubles partner. So when Wario needed a Double Dash partner, they just brought back Waluigi again, and that was like his first entrance into the Mario Kart games.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. So yeah, technically the Kongs are the last returning racers, and Pauline and Toadette are just brand new ones.
I kind of like the whole reason we haven't seen Waluigi in other games outside of the sports games and stuff is because of the whole, do you remember the Nintendo Power backstory for Waluigi?
I do not.
So, in Nintendo Power, there was like a whole article written how where Waluigi actually isn't, like, related to any of them or anything like that. And he's actually just an actor that Wario pays because he needed, like, a doubles partner or whatever. And so, like, the only reason he ever shows up in any of the games he does is because Wario is paying him. And in between that, he actually just goes back to his normal life. Like, I don't even know if his mustache is real. You know, like, he could be wearing a fake nose for all we know.
I mean, that would be funny.
Yeah. That isn't a Nintendo America thing with Nintendo Power. So who knows how legit that would be as far as the Japanese consider. but it still falls in line with the fact that the only reason Waluigi showed up in the first place is because Wario needed a doubles partner in tennis.
He takes off his nose, his hat, and actually, like, turns out he's on stilts, and he just ends up looking like a Mario version of Shigeru Miyamoto when he was younger.
That'd be funny. I think it'd be funny if, like, most of his body is the way he looks, right? But, like, when he's not working with Wario, he actually, like, has good posture, stands up completely straight, right? Takes off the fake nose and everything, and he just looks like a normal, suave dude. Probably a resident of New Donk City because he's about as tall as all of they are anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. With how much he hunches his legs down, he is around that height.
We will also have Daisy Circuit for Mario Kart Wii, which will be really fun. Did you see? Do we have any of the other courses listed? No, that was the only one. So the other ones will be revealed, I guess, when because they usually come in 4s, right? Because it's a circuit. Or is it 8? I don't remember. But I think it's 4. I think each one is a circuit. The other 3 will, I guess, be revealed when the wave actually comes out. I think one of them will probably end up being another Mario Kart Tour real place. Like, a lot of them have been where they added, like, London and Paris and Tokyo.
It's usually been at least one tour course with each one.
And I'm guessing this one probably won't have a new course, though, because it's the last one. Otherwise, usually it's the brand new course that they show off. But they were showing off Daisy Circuit. So I'm assuming the other 3 will probably be retro courses. But
Unless it turns out the new course is like Mario Wonder inspired, so they're waiting.
That would be kind of cool. I'd be okay with that. But this is it. This is the last one. Last wave. That's be all 48 courses. Oh, so that they have to come with 8, right? Because each wave, if there's 6 of them, each one has 8. So there's gonna be a lot of courses added that we just don't know about yet. There could be new ones. I don't know. I haven't been keeping that much of a track of it. I've played maybe 2 of the courses from the DLC. I don't own it myself. We have to play it over on Matt's Switch, and it's just like, I don't know. I just didn't like 8 as much as I like 7.
I keep forgetting, and it's like, oh yeah, the DLC came out. I can try these new courses.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's because it definitely feels tighter. Deluxe feels tighter than the Wii U version, right? But I just played so much of the Wii U version, and the Wii U version did not feel like it controlled as tightly as the 3DS version. And even the Switch version does not control as tightly as Mario Kart 7 did, right? But it's better. And I just played so much of it on the Wii U as it was, and liked it, but not as much as 7, that I've had no desire really to play 8 Deluxe on the Switch. Even though it's like one of the most popular games of all time at this point, right? It's the best selling in the franchise. It's I think has sold better than like any Mario game, period. I just don't care. It's not as good as 7. It has more shit. I'm just hoping that the next one actually plays tighter, because they've been progressing, right? Like every Mario game mechanically has felt better progressively through 7, and then 8 it felt like we were dropping back down to Mario Kart Wii. Which again, I like Wii. But if we're going on a direction, I want it to continue the direction we're going. I don't want it to go backwards.
Yeah, that is true. Progress, not regress.
I'd even be fine with flatlining. I'm like, okay, if 7's the best it's ever going to get, at least let's stay there, right?
Yeah.
Because I thought 7 was really good. I really enjoyed 7. It was probably the one I played the most out of any Mario Kart game. Actually, no, probably second most. I probably played Mario Kart DS before that. 7 controls way better than DS. I just had nothing better to do when Mario Kart DS was out. Okay,
I just remember the only times I played the DS was with you, so I was always the shy guy.
Oh yeah. That was a cool thing about the DS, is that you could just do the download play, and if there was only one person, you could have up to like, what was it? It was like 16 people could play or something. It was some stupid number, but you could have like everybody else were shy 16. Guys. It was some stupidly big number, but yeah, you just have a whole bunch of shy guys playing around. I loved that game. That was a fun game. I played too much of it. Like, way too much of it. I used to play that, like, online and stuff. We have, the final thing. That meant anything to me. I don't know if you saw the whole direct and there was something else that stood out to you. If you did or not. Again, I didn't have time. I only caught a few trailers after the fact. But we finally got the name of Princess Peach's new game, and we got to see more of what the game is about, and it's called Princess Peach Showtime, where as the princess is getting a whole bunch of transformations, almost Magical Girl style, to be able to save this theatrical world. So the whole world is like a stage performance, and she's going to have to use these different power-ups to solve the problems. And it feels very Magical Girl to me. Not just the fact that it's Princess Peach and she has magic transformations, but some of them even kind of remind me of Sailor Moon. Did you ever watch Sailor Moon growing up?
Yeah, I did. Also, right. Like, as you're describing this, all I can think of in my head is Balan Wonderlands, but it's not shit.
Probably, yeah. So in Sailor Moon, she had her little magic wand thing, right, that she could use for different stuff. And I think one of them was even like, she had a compact. And she could use her moon prism powers to disguise herself to do different things. So a lot of times she would go like undercover, even looking almost detective-like. And I don't know how the power was supposed to work, because she still looked like herself, at least from our perspective. But she would have like a duster on and maybe like glasses and a mustache, right? And it's like, is it like some type of hypnosis type thing? Like other people, this magical veil, like a glamour, see her as the person she's pretending to be? Or are people just stupid and they're seeing this woman walk around with glasses and a mustache and they don't think like, are you Usagi? Right.
I mean, considering this is around the same, like, only slightly before Pokemon, where Jesse and James were pulling this bullshit without magic.
Yeah. Like, I'd have to go back. It's been a really long time since I read Sailor Moon to see if there's, like, an in-world explanation for it. But I forgot. But it reminds me of it, because she would do all these different, like, transformations when she was trying to do stuff undercover. And Princess Peach will have a lot of transformations for combat, for cooking, for solving problems. She has a sword fighter Peach. There's a detective Peach. There's a patisserie Peach. And you'll be going around and solving the problems of this stage-based world. I think it'll be fun. I always love when Nintendo experiments with things. This actually makes me feel a lot like Paper Mario, because if you play Paper Mario 1 and 2 specifically, because they Thousand Year Door added audience interaction, where you could actually see the audience. If you're doing better, the audience gets bigger. Also, sometimes like a stage light might fall down on somebody, right? The whole games of Paper Mario 1 and 2 take place on stage. And that's like a recurring theme to Nintendo. it feels like Super Mario Brothers 3 takes place on stage because it opens up with like this these stage curtains opening, and when you look at the background, like all of the platforms and stuff look like they're bolted on to the walls, possibly with like long pipes holding them up. And if you hold down and B on certain platforms, like the white ones, you can actually fall back into the backdrop of the stage, right? So theater is a big recurring theme in Mario. And when this isn't a already like named franchise, this isn't like new Super Mario Brothers, this isn't Super Princess Peach sequel, this is just its own name, Princess Peach Showtime. I love the experimentation.
It's also making me think of Wario Land, Master of Disguise.
Yes, that one. I love that.
Also, for some reason, I also just thought of like what would happen if Wario tried pulling that shit without a magic wand.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought of him scaring people with like Chain Chomp Wario, but it's literally just a fake Chain Chomp made of cardboard that he just carries on top of himself like a box, and just you hear him in his just normal voice, arf 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 arf.
Yeah. I also like that Wario is technically immortal because he just doesn't care to die.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But so
I feel like the canonical thing is that he keeps doing things that should kill him, and he's too dumb enough to realize it, so he just lives.
Yeah. So the way the game's going to work in general, right? Talk about the experimentation. Peach is partnering up with the guardian of the theater, which is a living ribbon named Stella. Another reason why I get like magical girl vibes from it, right? Because that sounds like you would give a magical girl a living ribbon, and that's where all the powers would come from. It also feels very Super Paper Mario in that way, right? Where Pix teams up with you, and you can switch out for all the pixels as your power-ups. And each theater production, each show, is associated with like a different outfit and ability for Peach to wear. So there's like a Sleeping Beauty fairy tale where Peach becomes the sword fighter. There's also the detective is in a mystery museum set. There's a bakery show where she's the patisserie. But there's also times where she has to fight off the Sour Bunch because the bad guys are a guy named Grape and the Sour Bunch. And she actually has a kung fu outfit too, like which to me is she's like going full magical girl is Kung Fu Peach, and you're actually getting the fight. There'll be more transformations revealed in the game. But it's ridiculous. It's the type of stuff I think you need to lean into. It feels very Wario Land at that time, right? Where like, yeah, Wario Land, you get all these different level or different transformations that you use in every level. But some levels are themed where they might introduce the new transformation. So like you're gonna have to be Zombie Wario throughout this whole level almost, right? Or using the light to go in and out of being Zombie Wario. So I think that'll be fun. And there is a platforming core to the game as well as puzzles. So you're going to be able to do some fighting and you're going to be able to do some puzzles, but you're primarily going to be platforming. And this is the exact type of thing where I said, I wish Super Paper Mario was just its own thing instead of a part of Paper Mario, right? If there was like a Paper Mario Showtime and then this years later was Princess Peach Showtime, or not even Paper Mario, just like Super Mario Showtime, and then there's like a Princess Peach Showtime. I wish that that's how they franchised it instead of just tacking something on to a game type where it doesn't belong. Because this already seems like a really fun game, and I might even be, despite being like an RPG player myself, like I think turn-based RPGs are my favorite games. I love all kinds of stuff. And this platformer with disguises or not even disguises, but like magical transformations and puzzles, I'm more excited for this game than anything else Nintendo has announced this year.
I mean, fair.
Yeah.
That does sound like a very interesting concept.
Out of everything Nintendo's announced in the whole year that hasn't come out yet, what's the thing that excites you the most?
Honestly, I think Peach is the Peach Showtime. Yeah.
The Princess Peach Showtime that we just talked about. Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like a
Yeah,
really fun
'cause,
game.
like, yeah, because like Wonder is one that I'm probably gonna get and play, but it's like a lot of the hype I originally had for it has kind of died off.
Yeah, and it does kind of seem like it'll be fun. It'll be interesting. It'll at least a single time play, but it's also kind of going to be baby's first Mario game to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could feel that. I was originally excited for that when I saw the first trailer. I still am, but I'm not like
Kinda wish.
super excited.
Like partially I kind of feel bad that the person taking over after Charles, that's going to be his first outing.
I don't. I think that's fine, right? I think that's a fine place to start. Because I'm trying to remember, even like Charles first, I think it was like a CDI game or something. I don't even think it was 64. Like, I think, was it? Because I think it might have even been like Mario Teaches Typing or something like that. Might have been the first game that he voiced Mario. So it's like, it doesn't matter what your first one is. It's still going to be a really hype game. It's still going to sell well. And it's still going to be the voice of Mario. Because he's going to be, you've heard it already if we were watching the stuff.
Yeah,
it's a very good impression of Charles. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference, really, if you weren't told otherwise.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine. I don't even feel bad. Like, it's going to be one of the most sold games of the year. Like, just straight up. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Actually, the fact that it's very kid-friendly, very beginner, like, entry-level friendly, might even sell it even more. I don't think it's going to do Zelda well. I don't even think it'll probably do, like Tears of the Kingdom well. I don't think it'll do Breath of the Wild well. I don't think it'll do Animal Crossing New Horizons well. I'm going to guess it's probably going to sell 10 to 15 million. Which is still, that Nintendo would like more, but that's still a fucking golden game if it does that. This Peach game, though, probably won't sell anywhere close to that. I think it'll still do well. It'll probably probably outsell something like Final Fantasy 16, which sold like shit compared to what they expected, right? Like these non-Nintendo games. But I think it'll still sell well. It's probably just going to do like, I don't know, maybe 7 million.
I mean, in its defense, though, 16 was poorly advertised big time because any reaction I have personally had or have heard when somebody mentions it is just like, wait, that shit's out?
Yeah. Poorly advertised, only on one system that barely anybody owns anyway. Well, this game, the reason Nintendo games sell so well is everybody owns a Switch. And it's Nintendo, so they know it's going to be quality. But because they sell so well, if you told somebody a game's going to sell 7 to 8 million, they'd be like, that's amazing. Most games don't do that, which is true. But then when you tell Nintendo that, it's like, we're hoping for at least 10. We would prefer 20 to 30. And it's like, well, I get it. Because everybody owns your system, and you have games like Animal Crossing that sold like 32 million. I mean, what can you do, right?
Yeah, well, you know, at least it's not Activision level where they're asking for things that there's no way in hell they'll get anywhere near and then shut down the studio because they didn't meet it.
That's not just Activision these days, you know? Like, everybody does it.
Yeah,
At least, like, Nintendo doesn't really shut down studios themselves if they own the studio. They'll just, like, repurpose them. They're like, okay, that game didn't sell well enough for us to do another one. We're just going to have you doing this thing instead. Now, there have been a lot of studios that worked with Nintendo that are shut down. That's one of the reasons we haven't had another Mario & Luigi RPG in a long time. Was it Alpha Dream, I think was the name of the studio. And the reason they shut down, they were third party that worked with them. And I think they went like bankrupt or something. And the game just went with them. And, like, Nintendo has the money. They could rescue the license if they really wanted to, but do they really care?
Yeah, that's really where it boils down to in that regard. Unlike Activision, where they've just like bought up and shut down so many studios that they have no idea whether they still have the rights to something anymore.
Yeah. See, at this point, oh god, this probably will never happen, but I wish it would. At this point, we kind of want Nintendo to just like buy out the Pokemon company from Game Freak, right? Buy out all of Game Freak's share in it and be like, okay, we're just gonna buy the other half of Creatures Inc. And we're gonna go and we're just gonna take it over. I mean, they have the biggest say in the Pokemon company anyway when it actually comes to decisions outside of the main games. But Game Freak is still a half owner in both the Pokemon company and in Creatures Inc. Because technically the Pokemon company is owned by 3 different companies, but one of the companies is a company that Nintendo and Game Freak own together, which is Creatures Inc. And it's like, just buy out their shares, right? You already got the creator of Pokemon moved away from Game Freak and moved to the Pokemon company proper. Just buy them out. Make Pokemon basically a first-party thing, but still under its own company, right? Just make the Pokemon company a subsidiary of Nintendo. And don't deal with Game Freak anymore, because they clearly just want to make different games. Right? Like, they want to make different games so much that the leader of their company left to go back to the game that he started. That's a company I have no hope for at the current moment is Game Freak. I hope they would turn it around. I want them to prove me wrong with the next release of Pokemon, but I have no hope for them.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of hard to hold out hope when now it's been 2 games in a row, or it's like, oh well, it would be too much work porting the old models over, and then the models that are in common were literally ripped from the previous game. So it's like, wow, you people just don't give a shit anymore, do you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem too with Scarlet Violet is, unlike most people, I actually liked it more than Sword and Shield, right? But that doesn't mean that I thought the game was flawless. I have a lot of complaints about the game, and I think everything from X and Y on has been a bad trajectory. X and Y was probably the last one that I really, really enjoyed, and I just don't see it getting better. I just don't. Not unless, like, Nintendo looked at the lack of profits on the last. I mean, they profited, but it wasn't what they wanted it to be, right? It didn't do Pokemon numbers. They look at the lack of profits on the last one and like, oh, we're having more input this time. That's the only way I see it getting better. But that's pretty much it for the show. It's 7:28. It's time we can start closing out. I don't really have anything else to talk about.
I do have a small thing I can mention.
Oh, what do you got?
Hey, so as some people might know, not too long ago, Cyberpunk 2099 started updating only for next-gen consoles and PC because they are intending to work more around these, the requirements of the newer systems rather than the old ones, as they are trying to turn the game into the game they originally intended to make in the first place.
Yeah, which is fine. I do think it was a problem that they were being forced to make it for systems they never wanted to make it for.
Yep. And now Cyberpunk's big 2.0 update, in which they are going to be drastically, retooling the game to be closer to what they intended, now has a release date, and that update is coming the 21st of this month.
That's good.
And when they brought up the fact that it is going to drastically change how the builds overall are affected by attributes and perks, having entirely new perks that give new abilities instead of just a bunch of
Is it
passives.
is it actually starting to sound a little more like an RPG?
It is actually.
Okay.
And they even updated their build tester on their website to include the new perks and abilities.
Like, because there is the problem, right? It's like a double-edged sword. Though I do think in this specific case, it wouldn't have been that bad. Because I think regardless, most of their sales have been on PC anyway, right? But
Pretty much, yeah.
if you're looking at the consoles, you've got this decision you have to make. Do we force the game to be scaled down to make it for the older systems? Or do we let CD Projekt Red make the game as technically proficiently as they want to for these systems that almost nobody owns, right? Like, if it wasn't for the fact that the PC is there, and I think most sales, regardless, have been PC, especially because like a lot of mods had solved a lot of the problems for people anyway. One of the benefits of having PC, that would be a relevant dilemma. It really just isn't in this case. They should have just made it for next generation from the beginning, held off and got everything they wanted into the game. Most of their sales were always going to be on PC, especially because it's an RPG, right? Like, most of the people that are going to buy it are going to be the type of people that want to play like Elder Scrolls games or anything that gives you kind of like open decision making or wandering around the world. The PC audience and the modding audience was always going to be your core audience from the beginning.
Yeah, big time. And they have revealed how they're going to change things. Like, for example, your like stat bonuses and armor and stuff is going to be based more on cyberware than the closing, so allowing you to build your character visibly how you want them, while at the same time being able to build your character stat-wise the way you'd want them entirely separately, instead of one being hinged on the other. And
That's
as
pretty cool.
on top of and instead of just a bunch of passives, the perks actually do give you abilities that can affect your gameplay, such as new moves, new capabilities, entirely new like passives and actives based on what you're actually building into. It is like, at least gameplay wise, because I don't think it's going to do anything to change the like in-game story, but based on content we've been hearing about coming in its first DLC, which will be coming out later, not too long after the 2.0 update, overall gameplay wise it is sounding more like an actual RPG than just a shooter that's masquerading as one.
Yeah, because that was my big problem. And I kind of always knew it was going to go in that direction. But I thought it was going to be more like what it's turning into, right? Because people are like, oh, it's going to play like you're actually playing Cyberpunk, the game. It's like, that was never going to happen. Now, we did think at least it was going to have a lot of the traits and stuff, like what it's becoming now. This is at least what we thought it was going to be. Well, we didn't think it was going to be the mess that it was at launch, where it was just a shooter. But like, it was never the type of game that I was excited with, even from the beginning. It's cool now, though. Like, that's cool. I'm glad that people are going to be able to enjoy the game they were at least expecting, even if it's too long. There's another game that's like that, right? That I had zero interest in, with even how they were advertising it, and it wasn't even up to how it was advertising. But I looked at it now, I was like, God, I might actually be interested in this game. And that's No Man's Sky. Because remember, we used to talk about that way back. I think we were...
Oh yeah, because that was a... When that released, that was a major shit show. Like,
it
even
was
compared to Cyberpunk.
And then everybody was saying, oh, it's getting better. It's actually adding all the features they promised. And then I was like, yeah, but like, the features it promised still, I was never interested in that, right? But they've added even more than what they've promised. And they've put so much in the game, and they changed the way that it plays so much. It's like, God. This is more like if you made a sequel to the game, almost, and you still only pay for the base price. All the updates have really kind of been free. It's like, I might actually be interested. Yeah, I have to play through that shitty, like, 3 to 5 hour tutorial that's still like the old game, but after you get past that part, the game actually looks really fucking cool now. I might cave in and eventually get No Man's Sky.
Yeah, it's always good when you find out that a company is willing to fix things instead of just,
Oh, and then
you
go
know,
above and
re-
beyond.
yeah, because like it- the producers of No Man's Sky and CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk, they could have very easily just did what a lot of companies would have done. It's like, well, it's not what we wanted, but that's what we had to deal with, so there you go.
Yeah,
No, they actually stayed and fixed it, and I'm very glad they did, because there are not that many studios
Hmm.
out there nowadays that you can
And even
trust to
better,
do that.
they're not charging you for the fixes.
Yeah,
A
that's
lot of
definitely
studios would
true
charge
too.
it as like DLC or something. You're like, no, no.
Oh yeah, especially since like Cyberpunk's 2.0 update is coming like right before they do a DLC. They could have very easily just locked this shit behind a paywall and just had it with the DLC, and they didn't do that. It's like, no, the overhaul is a free update. The DLC will just give you extra content to use along with the new update stuff.
Yeah, which is great.
In
But I
fact,
think
the update supposedly changes so much that they encourage people to start the game over rather than use their old saves.
I would encourage that too. Well, especially like those type of games, right? It's like even going, let's say, play an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout game, right? Those type of games are supposed to be short, and that's actually my complaint with them trying to make the over at Bethesda. They're trying to make like the Elder Scroll games longer. When I say short, it's like you should be able to beat the main part of the game in 10 hours. That's how short it should be. Now, you should be able to do way more than that, right? You could spend 100 hours in there if you want. But the whole point is being able to do multiple runs of a game. And I know that Cyberpunk is one of those type of games because your decisions kind of matter and how you play your character matters. So like the main story of the game should never really be more than 10 hours, but they should give you plenty of other things to do so you can be this character for as long as you want. But it should be about the replayability and doing things different each time if you want to. So they shouldn't like really make you feel like you have to commit to a character for too long if you don't want to. And I think making a new character, I would agree with them. Adding all of this shit, you want to play it from the beginning. You want to experience all the good shit from the beginning because that's the point of the run.
Yeah, definitely a big time like show of yeah, you want to do this over, not just change things.
But yeah, I think that's good. Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't know that because I've not been keeping up with Cyberpunk at all. And
Yeah.
with how it is, I don't think you could blame anybody for not keeping up with Cyberpunk at all, except for people who maybe bought the game.
Yeah, I mean, I bought the game, I played it, I did
Yeah.
have fun with it, but it's like when I heard about builds changing, it's like, oh, I may have to look at this, especially since I tend to go with the beefy brawler builds. And yeah, from what I'm seeing of it, I actually would have to drastically change my build.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good. And I think we're hitting overtime a little too much. But that was a good thing to mention. Thanks for bringing it up, and we'll close out the show now. Thanks for coming in and filling in for Marsupial because he just was feeling ill and couldn't be here today.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, yeah. And you've got probably soon. You said they always show up late anyway, but you've got a
I
Baldur's Gate
just
game
got
to hop in.
I just heard from them, and it kind of exploded.
Oh, is it canceled for tonight?
Possibly happening later, but it's like they ran into somebody they haven't seen in a while, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
gonna be a bit.
Well, I guess I'm not the one holding you, but I do still need to close out the show. So, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please share it out with somebody else. Help grow the audience. Really makes a difference. And if you want to go above and beyond, like those developers that are fixing their games that they technically don't have to, you can consider giving a donation to streamlabs.com/vomitoriumlive. Help pay for my soda funds. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.